Amidst the dazzling lights of Tokyo and the organized silence of the bullet trains, there's a piece of Japan that seems frozen in time, and not because of the beauty one might expect from such a developed country. Kamagasaki, in the heart of Osaka, is one of those places that contradicts everything you imagine about the land of the rising sun. Hidden from the eyes of tourists and even most Japanese people themselves, the neighborhood bears the open scar of social inequality in the country. Walking through its streets, you don't see LED billboards or themed cafes. What you see are tired faces, silent alleys, and structures that seem about to collapse. There, poverty isn't just a problem, it's part of the landscape. Kamagasaki's origins date back to the post-World War II period, when Japan needed to rebuild from the rubble. The entire country became a vast construction site, and cheap labor became essential for erecting buildings, streets, and factories. Men from various regions migrated to Osaka in search of any job that would put rice on their plates. Kamagasaki became the meeting point for these temporary workers, people who accepted anything in exchange for a roof over their heads and a modest meal. It was a land of silent promises, that with effort and patience, life would improve. But the promise was not fulfilled for everyone. Over the years, and with Japan's technological advancements, the need for manual labor diminished. Opportunities disappeared, temporary jobs became even scarcer, and the neighborhood that was once a symbol of work became a symbol of abandonment. Poverty, which should have been temporary, became permanent. Many of those men who came to stay for a few months simply stayed. They grew old there. And the neighborhood, which grew with the efforts of those who dreamed of stability, plunged into a silent spiral of precariousness, forgotten by public policies and by the national imagination itself. Unlike what you see in anime or tourist guides, Japan is not immune to poverty. Kamagasaki is living proof of this, living and suffering. Despite being considered the largest pocket of poverty in the country, the place is not officially labeled a slum. But what you see there fits the concept perfectly. Residents living in tiny dwellings, some without bathrooms, others without even a decent mattress. There are also those who live on the streets, covered by pieces of blue tarpaulin. You don't hear much noise, because in Kamagasaki even pain is silent, and perhaps that is one of the reasons why this reality goes unnoticed by so many people. The misery there doesn't shout, it whispers. And the whisper gets lost among the advertisements for the latest cell phones and the signs of luxury stores in the neighboring areas. Kamagasaki is surrounded by modern zones, with tall buildings and vibrant lighting. A few blocks away, the city seems to function as if nothing is wrong. This makes everything even more surreal. Poverty isn't far away. It's right next door. But indifference has created an invisible wall between the two worlds. A wall made of shame, silence, and neglect. It's as if Kamagasaki were a poorly kept secret. What's most intriguing is that this contrast doesn't provoke outrage. The residents themselves, mostly elderly, seem to have accepted their fate. Some live on the little they receive from the government. Others depend on occasional donations. But what is most striking is the almost total absence of public demonstrations, protests, and cries for help. The invisibility is so profound that it becomes a kind of silent rule. Here, no one complains. Here, one simply survives. And surviving, in this context, is almost a form of resistance. Despite all the hardship, Kamagasaki is not a lifeless place. There are makeshift markets, stalls selling meals at very low prices, and small shops run by longtime residents. It's a kind of underground economy that operates at its own pace, outside the official clock of corporate Japan. There, transactions are made with eye contact, a handshake, and the trust that arises from the forced coexistence between neighbors who share the same misfortunes. It's a parallel Japan, where the codes of conduct are different, and where dignity needs to be reinvented every day. And those who think the government is unaware of this place's existence are mistaken. It is aware. But confronting the reality of Kamagasaki would mean admitting that not every Japanese person lives according to the standard of efficiency and wealth that the country promotes to the world. It would be tearing away the veneer. And for a society that values image so much, that's almost unacceptable. Thus, Kamagasaki remains there, resisting on the edge, like a stain that many pretend not to see. But it's there, very much alive, very real, waiting for the day when someone finally hears its whisper. Even amidst the harshness of daily life, something stands out in the behavior of Kamagasaki residents: the almost total absence of requests for help. It's as if there's a silent pact between them and the rest of the country, an unwritten agreement that each person should deal with their own pain without bothering others. This attitude stems from a philosophy deeply rooted in Japanese culture, known as gambaru. Simply translated, it means to persevere, to resist, to do your best in the face of adversity. But in practice, it transforms into something far more complex, an emotional armor that prevents even a cry for help. Many residents prefer to remain silent, even in extreme situations. The idea of being a burden to others is so frowned upon that many of these people choose to go hungry or cold rather than seek help. And this is not limited to Kamagasaki. Throughout Japan, this behavior of emotional restraint, of hiding difficulties, of avoiding public exposure of vulnerability, is common. In the case of the homeless, this manifests itself even more intensely. They don't beg, they don't approach strangers, they don't show themselves. They live on the margins, not only of the city, but of collective perception. The curious thing is that, because of this discreet behavior, many people who visit Japan don't even realize they've seen a homeless person. They aren't gathered in large groups, nor do they hold up signs or makeshift tents in the city center. On the contrary, they are silent, discreet, and avoid central areas. This doesn't happen by chance. There is a carefully planned urban structure to prevent them from staying in these spaces. It has a name: hostile architecture, a set of visual and physical strategies that make it so that homeless people simply cannot settle in public places. This architecture reveals itself in details that, at first glance, seem banal. Park benches with metal dividers that prevent anyone from lying down, sidewalks with uncomfortable textures that make it difficult to stop for long, absent shelters in strategic locations to avoid crowding. And the result is only one. The homeless are pushed away from sight, to corners where they don't bother anyone. Kamagasaki is one of those corners, a forced refuge where their presence is tolerated, not because there is acceptance, but because there they don't interfere with the clean and technological aesthetics of large cities. This subtle exclusion creates an almost invisible, yet extremely effective division. While tourists stroll through the impeccable streets of Osaka, with its modern shops and elegant cafes, just a few kilometers away, lonely elderly people face freezing nights without even a blanket. And what's most striking is that many inhabitants of the city itself have never set foot in Kamagasaki, not because they are afraid, but simply because it's not talked about. It's like a part of the body that has become ill and has been ignored, left aside, hidden under clothing. Something that, if ignored long enough, might disappear on its own, or so they hope. But the truth is, it doesn't disappear. On the contrary, the homeless population has been silently growing, mirroring the aging of the country and the weakening of family support networks. Many of Kamagasaki's residents are people who once worked, paid taxes, and contributed to the country's growth. Now, retired and without support, they live in tiny apartments or makeshift shelters. Loneliness in these cases is as intense as material deprivation. There is no family, no visits, no phone calls. There is only silence, the gambaru, and waiting for another day. The most disconcerting thing about all this is that, even in the face of such precariousness, the residents still maintain an admirable sense of dignity. There are no confrontations, no looting, no disorder. Kamagasaki remains a relatively peaceful place, where everyone takes care of what little they have with zeal. Those with a roof over their heads, however small, keep it clean. Those who don't have one respect the space of others. It's as if there were a tacit code of coexistence, sustained by empathy among equals. There is no luxury, but there is still humanity. This silent humanity also manifests itself in small gestures that escape statistics. A resident sharing their tea with another. A woman leaving a blanket on a cardboard box during the early morning hours. A group gathering to eat rice and miso soup from shared plastic bowls. These are scenes that few see, but which reveal the essence of that place, and which, in a way, challenge the official narrative of a homogeneous, rich, and functional Japan. Kamagasaki is the side that doesn't appear in soap operas or shop windows, but which exists, persists, and carries with it a kind of sad and forgotten beauty. In the narrow streets of Kamagasaki, Far from the technological frenzy that Japan exports to the world, there is a parallel social structure that survives on the margins of the system. This structure spreads to other cities and has a specific name: Doyagai. These are poorly lit urban areas with bland facades, where the presence of the state is practically non-existent, and life unfolds at its own pace. The Doyagai concentrate thee to your heart's content. Small, cheap, and dilapidated boarding houses live there, inhabited by those who couldn't keep up with progress: temporary workers, lonely elderly people, former factory workers without pensions. And although they are still in the heart of metropolises like Tokyo and Yokohama, it's as if they live in a separate country. Those to your heart's content. These spaces are so cramped that they barely fit a narrow bed and a fan. There is no kitchen, no living room, and the bathrooms are shared by dozens of people. The corridors are dark and stuffy, and each door hides a story of silent failure or family abandonment. These are dwellings that once served as temporary shelter for manual laborers seeking quick money, but which, over time, have become permanent prisons for those who have grown old without a support network. Living there is almost like disappearing. No one sees, no one comments, no one intervenes. The contrast between these areas and their surroundings is stark. On one side, crowded shopping malls, full of colorful billboards and shops selling luxury goods. On the other, silent streets, with peeling facades and an air of permanent resignation. Nobody photographs these places. Nobody includes the Doyagai in tourist itineraries. And, most of the time, even the Japanese themselves don't know these areas well. They seem out of place in time, as if they were stuck in the 1970s, while the rest of the country is rapidly advancing towards automation, artificial intelligence, and hyperconnectivity. Even within this desolate scenario, life goes on. Washing machines are positioned on the sidewalks, operating with coins, accessible even to those living on the streets. It's common to see an elderly man washing his only change of clothes, a ritual of dignity that refuses to die. On small street corners, there are stalls selling simple foods: rice, miso soup, dried fish. Eating there is cheap, and often the day's meal depends on these alternatives. Money circulates almost symbolically, in a microcosm where the value of things is measured more by need than by the market. Doyagai also function as a refuge for those who wish to escape the system's gaze. No questions are asked, no background checks are required. Someone arrives, pays the minimum, and settles in. It could be a former factory worker, a retiree without family, or someone who lost everything after a personal crisis. Anonymity is guaranteed, and this is part of the silent agreement that sustains these places. The community forms without explicit ties, but with a kind of mutual respect, based on the shared experience of social failure. Everyone there has something in common. They have been left behind. There are no signs of urban revitalization in these areas. They remain frozen, without intervention, as if condemned to exist in darkness. Public lighting is weak, signs are old, and maintenance of structures is done by the residents themselves, when possible. Even so, there is a certain order. No one invades another space, and even garbage is left in the correct places. Although the collection service is irregular, it's a parallel world where the state fails, but coexistence still exists within self-imposed limits. Perhaps the most intriguing thing is realizing that these spaces, however invisible they may be, continue to function. There are open shops, small services operating, people coming and going with modest shopping bags. The economy revolves almost underground, based on exchange, improvisation, and daily resilience. It is proof that, even in abandonment, human beings find ways to move forward. In the Doyagai, there are no grand dreams, nor plans for upward mobility, but there is survival, which is already a form of victory for many there. These forgotten regions show that Japan also has its frayed edges. While the country enchants the world with robots, self-driving cars, and smart cities, within it exist pockets of carefully ignored backwardness. The existence of the Doyagai is unsettling because it breaks the narrative of perfection. They expose the human cost of efficiency, the consequence of a society that failed to care for everyone while it progressed. And precisely for this reason, they are fundamental parts of understanding the real Japan, the one that goes beyond the shop windows and advertisements. Within these forgotten zones, daily life reveals habits and elements that seem to belong to a parallel reality. A curious example is vending machines, so common in Japan, but which in the Doyagai acquire a very different meaning. In these areas, they frequently offer alcoholic beverages and cigarettes, even in quiet and unguarded locations. This contrasts with the more affluent neighborhoods, where this type of product is not so easily accessible through these machines. Alcohol, in these marginalized spaces, ceases to be just a drink. It becomes an emotional anesthetic, a silent companion for those who live isolated and forgotten by the world. It's possible to find residents with bottles in their hands in the early hours of the morning. There's no judgment, because almost everyone there knows each other's pain. Alcohol serves as an escape, as a shield, as a kind of daily ritual to endure the monotony and emptiness. And these machines, silent and practical, function as constant suppliers of a small dose of relief. Some even sell cigarettes, without requiring proof of age, a detail that shows how lax, or rather absent, the oversight is in these areas. The state doesn't want to see, and therefore, doesn't regulate. Another striking detail is the illegal gambling houses. While in the rest of the country gambling is strictly prohibited, with controlled exceptions, such as the famous ones, in the kitchen in Doyagai, the reality is different. There are places where money bets are made openly, at makeshift tables, by people who have little to lose. It's a kind of underworld where the risk pays off more than waiting for a chance that never comes. These betting houses aren't hidden with much effort, because the residents know that the police rarely show up there. It's as if there's a kind of institutional zone of oblivion. Even in the kitchen and gambling dens that technically operate within the law, loopholes are used to circumvent the rules. Players win chips. And right next door there's a small, seemingly unrelated shop that buys those chips for money. A well-staged charade to evade the law. But in Doyagai, often even that charade isn't necessary. There, the games are played in a raw, direct way, without any need for disguise. Coins, bills, whatever little one has are wagered. And when you win, you might buy food, drink, or just another round. When you lose, you return to the sidewalk with the same emptiness as before. These practices end up shaping the very dynamics of the community. Many elderly people, without another source of income, begin to organize or manage these small gambling dens, drink stalls, or even vending machines. They become micro-entrepreneurs in an informal economy that survives on the fringes of legality. These are people who may have worked for decades in factories, built buildings in Tokyo, and now sell warm beer in dark alleys. The social downfall is not sudden. It builds up over time, until it becomes the only possible option. Garbage collection also presents a stark contrast to the rest of the country. In Japan, waste separation is a true obsession. In traditional neighborhoods, there are specific days for each type of waste: plastic, organic, glass, paper, and everything must be cleaned, folded, and packaged correctly. In the Doyagai districts, this logic is almost non-existent. Bags pile up on street corners, some torn, others mixed together. It's not due to carelessness, but to a lack of infrastructure. Collection is irregular, and the few who still try to maintain order end up demotivated by the lack of results. It's a symbolic portrait of the neglect these areas face. As shocking as it may seem, this chaos doesn't generate revolt. What exists there is a passive acceptance, a resignation etched in the eyes of those who have lived for decades without being heard. The absence of the state in these areas is not only physical, it is emotional. There are no community centers, inclusion programs, or regular health services. Many residents turn to each other in times of need, forming improvised solidarity networks. One lends a blanket, another shares sake, a third helps carry groceries. These are fragile bonds, but fundamental for those who have been pushed to the brink of existence. The feeling of abandonment is so profound that many are no longer bothered by the surrounding illegality. Underground casinos, free-flowing alcohol, the sale of expired products, everything is tolerated because there, right and wrong have lost their traditional meaning. What matters is survival. If it's necessary to break a rule to eat, so be it. Morality in these spaces is shaped by urgency, and that's what makes the Doyagai so different from the rest of Japan. They not only escape the aesthetics of the idealized country, but also live under their own ethical code, born from exclusion and maintained by resistance.